Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the second episode of Our Kids Play Hockey. My name is Lee Elias. I am joined by my good friends Christie Casciano-Burns and Mike Benelli. We're jumping right into today's topic in the November 2020 issue of USA Hockey. The article is going to be about floorball, one of the greatest, if not the greatest, off-ice activities for anybody in hockey, trying to get into hockey, trying to improve their skill sets. And I'm going to go right to Christie in this episode. Christie, why is this the selection for your article in the November 2020 issue of USA Hockey, and why did you choose this topic? Let's just jump in.
Well, we're going to go back to our pandemic experiences. A lot of us were wrestling for ways. We're stuck home. Everything was on pause. I know my daughter, one of her pandemic purchases was a new stick to play hockey in the driveway,
right,
and a stick handle to keep her skills up because our rinks were shut down. The gyms were shut down. So she bought a lot of weightlifting equipment, and she spent a lot of time in the driveway with her brother, just shooting on him in the net and honing her stick handling skills and staying in shape, because there weren't a lot of choices as far as what you could do other than, doing some rollerblading too.
Right.
So we had to get creative to stay in shape and to keep our skills sharp. And that was one of the ways that we did it. Mike Benelli actually... Hello, Mike.
Like our Mike Benelli?
Our Mike. Actually, planted the seed for the idea. And I'm going to tag you, Mike, because this is your baby.
Yeah. So, I mean, I was introduced to floorball a while back, and we'll get into that today. But I think, for Christie and looking for, again, in the pandemic world of trying to find ways to give kids opportunities to play hockey anywhere, this stick and ball, it just fits right into, I'm a big use of floorball to introducing hockey to kids, but it's a great development tool for existing hockey players. And I think, one of the things we touched on in our conversations was just the fact that, there's basically every kid in Finland, Sweden, Norway, Switzerland, they're all using this tool. Growing up, our kids, maybe, we're playing dodgeball and they're playing hockey in school. So I think there's a noticeable difference in how the communities use the sport. And Christie picked up on that, which was great.
Yeah. So before we dive into, because we're going to go over a lot of different applications as an introduction tool and even an advanced tool today, but just in case the audience doesn't know, Mike, we probably should explain exactly what floorball is. As you said, it came out of Scandinavia probably 15 years ago. I know that Björn Salming was a huge former NHL player, huge influence on the sport. He created his own brand. I remember I started seeing this about 10 years ago. But why don't you explain to listeners real quick just the basics of this is what a floorball stick is, this is what a floorball is, just in case they don't know.
Right. So it's just it's indoor hockey. So for the Europeans and now the North Americans that are using this sport, there's a lot of people that are like floorball purists and it's a completely different sport in Europe, in Finland and Sweden. They have 4,000 or 5,000 fans watching a game in Malmo, and here, I don't think you can understand the impact that it has as a real sport. But the way our application is floorball is it's a wiffle ball, basically, a little heavier bodied wiffle ball. It could control better, and then the stick is. We'll post it up and show it, but I think it's basically a modern version of a floor hockey stick. So back in the day when you went to gym class and you curved the stick with your foot and you made those banana blades, and they were wood and they were 5 feet long. This is just a modern version and a really fun, light tool to use for off-ice hockey. And it's a real sport in many parts of the world. And here in North America and specifically in the U.S., it's becoming a more and more mainstream, but more and more hockey programs are using this to supplement their need off the ice.
Right. I was introduced to floorball actually 10 years ago in Northwest Florida when I was living there, because it might surprise a lot of you, but there's not a lot of hockey in Northwest Florida. But we did have several Scandinavians that live there, Mike, and they brought me this floorball stick and they asked me to come out and play. And what's funny about it at the time, I was in my probably late 20s at the time, so I was through my playing years pretty much. But I started using this thing, and I still played adult league, and my hands got unbelievably better. And again, a lot of the nature within this is it's a wiffle ball with an airflow type stick. So the reaction time for your hands has to pick up very quick in terms of getting the feel of that. Now, there's two funny things that came out of this. We would play floorball games, and like I said, my hands were getting better, but what I was doing was playing hockey on a floorball court, and the Scandinavians used to hate that and used to get very mad at me because floorball, as you said, is a very different sport than hockey. But what's happening here is it's so good for hockey development that the ice hockey world and obviously the off-ice hockey world has really taken this on board. So, Christie, just going back to you again, you write in the article how this is a really great introduction to the game. And again, Mike said a little bit about that, but that's kind of the onus you put on the article. Why don't we speak a little bit about that, how it's such a great introduction to the game, especially for families that might not be able to afford the full ice hockey experience. And the example I always give is if you want to play basketball, you get a basketball. Football, grab a football. Baseball, you get a baseball and a glove and you're off. Hockey's never really had that to this level until now.
Right, and that's true. And for those of us who are deeply entrenched in hockey, sometimes we forget of how expensive, how steep it can be, the cost of just starting up in hockey, just getting the equipment that you need, skates. Kids don't like these wooden hockey sticks anymore, which I don't understand because that's what I started my kids off with. It's just everybody's got to have the best equipment. And so a lot of parents just find it too difficult to get the kids all suited up for hockey, just the cost of it. Plus there's also fees for the leagues itself for signing up to ice time. It's an expensive sport. So a lot of kids might be precluded from even giving hockey a try just because of the cost. This doesn't cost much at all. And what I like about this too is that it's a really great way to get kids to put a stick in their hand on ground level, because the ice can also be intimidating for kids if they don't know how to skate. So here's a great way to introduce them to, here's what it feels like to have a hockey stick in your hand. You don't have a puck, you've got a ball, and try and get it in the net. I brought this I do a lot of readings to kids, and I'll bring along my children's books. And some of these kids that I talk to have never even been in an ice rink. They don't know anything about it. Their brothers play basketball, football. They're bigger brothers and sisters. So they're not introduced to hockey. It's not in the neighborhood. They don't have a neighborhood rink. So it's very foreign to them. So I'll always, when I do my readings, I'll either bring a mini stick or a floorball stick and a ball. And when those kids just try it and they say, I can do this, it's really inspiring and encouraging. They might want to go home to mom and dad and say, hey, mom, do you think, this is something that I can try? I'm actually pretty good at it. And it also gets them introduced just to the sport that we love so much, just watching it on TV. Sometimes, they can relate to that. It becomes relatable.
Right.
Gym classes, very easy to start up a floorball program in your gym class. And our kids, and I know you're going to relate to this, they're always picked first to be on the team because they're the hockey kids. So they become the gym class heroes, which is fun. Something else that I thought was kind of interesting when I was doing my research for this article, and I was lucky enough to connect with Joe Bonnet. He's the USA Hockey's regional area for the Dallas area.
Right.
Mike, he said that it also helps to train the brain. Can you expand upon that? I was really curious. I didn't dive deep enough, so I'm kind of curious as what he meant by that to train the brain.
Yeah, so I mean, the one thing about floorball and the way the stick is made and the way the ball reacts to the player, it's so much more similar to hockey than hockey off ice. Using a real stick and a puck, there's a lot of friction. There's not a lot of movement. It doesn't allow you to be as creative. So what happens with floorball and the kids using it, it forces the kids to rethink the way they're handling the ball, protecting the ball, how to protect their body from the ball. It's very similar to soccer, where you're trying to put the ball between your body, the player, and the defender. So it adds another layer of development for the kids, because it's so easy in the sport of floorball. If you're stick handling in front of somebody, it's too easy just to knock the ball away from you. It's such a light stick and a light ball. It forces players to really move where their hands are, where their body position is. And a lot of things we teach in ice hockey, stick on puck, the protection, puck protection, all of those components fit into the floorball world. And so I think it really just adds another dimension. And the great thing about floorball too, there's no dump and chase hockey in floorball.
No.
You don't see players, if you're outside playing in the tennis court or out in the parking lot, there's no dumping the ball. You possess the ball, and you don't want to throw it away. So I think there's a lot of components to it that actually are closer to ice hockey than just playing hockey off ice.
Yeah, and I'll add it to this. When you look at off-ice hockey options, obviously another big one is roller hockey, which is a tremendous option as well. We're not in any way negating the other off-ice options, but one of the things I've noticed between the two, and they both have their benefits, is that roller hockey is a slower version of ice hockey. And again, that's not a knock. There's a lot of different tactics that come into it when you're playing that way. Roller hockey is a 4-on-4 game. Whereas floorball is a faster version of hockey in terms of the ball and the stick. And that's something that I noticed right away when I was playing. And to echo what you were saying, Mike, it's very much a possession game. And then, again, something both of you were saying, when you look at like the early years of ice hockey, when you start playing, you only get so many ice touches. And one of the things that coaches try and focus on in those early years, from Mike really to Pee Wee, is skating. And absolutely, as they should. You're only on the ice so much. So you should be focusing on skating as the primary skill set. So it's not that puck handling, passing, and shooting go wayside. It's just not the focus, because if you can't skate, you can't play ice hockey. So off the ice, this is just a tremendous tool to allow anyone, really of any age, to work on their hands. And again, I found this in my late 20s and it improved my hand set. If I had found this in my youth and I had done it from literally my birth as an ice hockey player, it would have been in there right away. And Mike, I want to go back to you for a second, because I know you're involved in several organizations and several initiatives to bring floorball to people. As Christie, you were saying this as well. But, tell me a little bit of that experience of handing that floorball stick to a young person for the first time. And again, as Christie said, like, hey, you can do this. This is a game you can play. And we all know the love for hockey is infectious, right? So, Mike, just tell me a little bit about those stories and some of those examples of how you've brought the game to people that maybe haven't seen it before.
Yeah, so now they're becoming endless. I mean, when I first brought this over from my experience in Norway, watching the kids, like we'd have on ice sessions, 5 hours a day, 6 hours a day, and every kid in the training camp after we get off the ice would go to the gymnasium and they do their off ice training, and it was floorball. I mean, their sticks are there. Every kid has their own stick. They walk into the rink with their floorball stick handling down the street. They put it in their locker. They take their hockey stick. They go on the ice. So what that became for me initially with the one prep school team I was working with was the off ice training regimen that we were doing. Right. I mean, I'd have to turn the lights off in the gym because the kids wouldn't leave. It would be and then the goalies are involved because they get to play. It levels the playing field for all these kids. So I looked at it as a development tool. But what it became for me was an eye opener because of now the way that I worked with Floorball and the company I work with is we were able to custom brand all the sticks. So I'd gone to the NHL, and we started with the Florida Panthers, was huge. And again, talking about Florida, they were able to reach hundreds of thousands of kids in what Christie's talking about in school, in YMCA's, after school programs. We took this program down to Puerto Rico in an outreach I did with the Florida sled hockey program. And we gave it to a bunch of kids in Rincon and out in the street. And none of them knew what the Florida Panthers were. None of them knew what hockey was. And these kids looked like hockey players because they were good athletes. They were good little soccer players. And in 10 minutes, they were making hockey moves, balls between the legs, handling the ball, making hockey plays instantly. And it was a big eye opener, I think, for a lot of clubs. So, the Islanders use it in all their school programming. The Rangers have just used it for their introduction to hockey. I've been billing it as it's the gateway sport. If you want kids to play hockey, to Christie's point, you go out for try hockey for free for a kid. You're putting a pair of blades, 2 knife blades with all this equipment on.
Yes.
And then you're asked to get it on the door of the rink and look out at 200 feet of ice and say, "Hey kid, go enjoy yourself."
Yeah.
This is going to be the best experience of your life. And I really looked at it as it's a cultural shift. The same thing. The Pittsburgh Penguins are now using it with the Penguin Foundation. We'll talk about Brian Trottier's use of it and his foundation. It's the gateway sport that allows children to culturally develop a love for hockey. And then the next, natural step is, I really want to learn how to skate because I love this hockey, but I want to be fast. I want to now go out there and I want the wind blowing through my hair. And that's what this does. I use the analogy a lot that when you're at a playground with your 8-year-old or your 7-year-old or your 6-year-old, they never ask, Mom, when are we leaving the monkey bars? Like, is this almost over yet? Like, how could we stop, using, you'll never hear a kid at a playground ask if it's almost time to go home ever. Right. And I'll equate that to floorball. When you put kids, we just did a program in Pauling, New York, a girls grow the game program. None of them played hockey before, lacrosse, soccer, field hockey players, good athletes, love being out there and compete, put a floorball in their stick. And, we're turning the lights off in the outdoor arena and having to send them home because they loved it. They have a lot of success with it. And it gives us the opportunity to now say, well, let's introduce you to, the next phase of this. And that's skates and gloves and helmets and a hockey stick on ice.
Right. I have a question for you, Mike. So parents who might not be familiar with it, minimal equipment is needed. And also, it can be a contactless sport as we're looking for options, just in case you're in a situation where your ice time is very limited, you can't get to the rink as often, you want to do some things with the teams. You can do this off-ice practice with floorball with minimal contact. Isn't that right?
So the rules of floorball is there's no body contact. So there's not even like stick over stick. It's when you establish the rules of floorball, the blade's on the ground. It's a contactless sport as far as the physical contact. Mm-hmm. There is some spatial awareness out there, but when you see kids mm-hmm. play, they naturally get into a place where, because the ball is moving so fast, like nobody's looking to have contact because they're trying to chase this ball down. And when you talk about cost, I mean, I have, so it's this and this, and that's it.
Let's be fair. It's that and about 5 of the balls because you're going to lose 1 or 2.
Yeah. Well, if you come from a hockey world, you lose floor balls like you lose hockey pucks.
Right.
Where they go in I don't know where they end up,
but
they tend to disappear. So, but in our world, Christie, it's a very low. I mean, for less than $50. And I talked to, Lee and I had a great conversation with Lou Varro about this a couple of months ago. It's soccer. I mean, it's basically, if you have, and even kids can play soccer, you don't even need cleats, right? You just need a ball. And I think that's what this is. It's a stick and a bunch of floor balls, and your kids are playing. We call it, it's just hockey in a bag, right? You dump it out. Gym classes see this. It's instant. The kids pick it up and they're playing. There's no setup time. And I think,
and here in New York State,
that is great for a parent.
Right. And in New York State, our kids are allowed to play soccer and field hockey, not ice hockey yet. So crazy. If this is similar to soccer, field hockey, then they should be able to play it, right? I would think.
Yeah, so a lot of our organizations, going back to Lee's earlier, I mean, a lot of our organizations that I work with, the youth hockey organizations, use this as an alternate training tool, but they also use it. We do a lot of bring your friend to hockey kind of events. Mm-hmm. So the 3 hockey players will invite 6 of their soccer friends, and they can play hockey. And really, we have kids playing in Darien, Connecticut. They're playing it in an old railroad parking lot. In Pauling, New York, they're playing it in an old roller rink. In other parts of the community, if they can be in a gym, they're playing in a gym. Sport courts, I use it in our town in our local tennis court. Doesn't mark up the floor. Again, it's minimal expense to get started. But to your point, it's another alternative for kids to be outside, socially distanced, and more importantly, and the theme, I think, of all of us that are in the coaching world, the kids just get to play. Let them play. They'll figure it out.
Smile.
And they police themselves, and they love scoring, and they like passing. And I think, again, you'll never – I don't see it. I don't see kids – leaving and quitting. They just keep playing and playing and playing. And literally it's such a unique opportunity to say, okay, listen, enough physical activity, enough laughing, we got to go home and have dinner. We got to go home and have dinner. And
it's Yeah,
Yeah.
right. You got to pull them out. And I love that
it.
because we're always looking for good options too for our kids for physical fitness as well. And this is an easy one. And it doesn't even feel like they're getting
No.
exercise,
So
which is
Guys
fun.
like me don't like floorball because you got to run. Like I like hockey because you can coast. You know, if you're a hockey player, you know how to cheat. You know how to kind of just coast
Right.
down the ice. In floorball, if your feet aren't moving, you're not playing and you're not involved. And I think so. I usually opt out of the adult league floorball stuff. But I love watching. But the kids have been great. Kids are great.
Yeah, Mike, you play goalie in floorball. Actually, so what you should also mention really quickly, it's actually a great tool for goalies as well because the ball moves faster than the puck. One of the things we're talking about makes me laugh is because my son is obviously in the younger years, and I've coached for most of my 20s and 30s now, and I always tell the parents of the younger kids, sweaty heads mean they go to bed. You know what I mean? So this will create sweaty heads. And that's what I always say. If the kids sweat, they're going to sleep that night, which means you get to sleep that night. And during a pandemic, God knows we need that more than ever. Christie, I did want to share a story with you. So Mike knows the story I'm about to share because he's the one who commissioned it, for lack of a better word. But I got a call over a year ago now from Mike and a good friend of ours, Bryce Salvador. And he said, hey, listen, how would you like to fly out to Northwest British Columbia, just near the Alaska border, with Brian Trottier and introduced floorball to some of the First Nation people up there. And I remember at first I was going, that's really far, and that's like 3 flights. And, and one of the flights has a propeller plane. And then I remember thinking, Brian Trottier is a Hall of Famer. I mean, he's won 4 Stanley Cups, on 5 Stanley Cups, 6 Stanley Cups actually with his coach. And then after I thought about it for a minute, I was like, you know what? This sounds like a great opportunity. So we flew out there, me and Travis, who's works with me. And I'll tell you again, we got a flight to Toronto to Vancouver to Kitimat Airport, which was, by the way, one of the most beautiful places I've ever seen in my entire life. This kind of part of Canada. And I met Brian Trottier, and then I'm thinking, great, this is great. We're going to make a video about floorball and introducing it to First Nation people. That was the surface of the idea. Then we got there. And I started interviewing the people there and the First Nation people and the experiences they've had, which again, we're not going to dive too deep into that right now. You can watch the video. It's called Hockey First Nation if you want to know. This experience changed my life, completely changed my life. Not only was everybody so gracious and so thankful, but the tournament that we had, they loved the game. And I got to see firsthand these kids who know ice hockey, obviously, in a multicultural event where they brought all the communities together, the First Nation communities and the Canadian communities in that area, to play this floorball tournament. And it was unbelievable. And then after we had a family meal with everybody. Gino Ochik was there, obviously, with Brian Trottier. And it was literally the miracle of hockey bringing people together. That's the way I describe it. And then mixed with the stories about why this connection point between the First Nation people and the local people, which they're all locals, but you know what I'm saying, why this meant so much to them. This was an event that brought people together and healed people at the same time while introducing them to the game. And I've always been Mike, I don't even know if I've ever said this, but I've always been very thankful for this trip because, travels change your experiences. They change your perspective.
You've never said that, but thank you.
Yeah. I mean, you saw the video, right?
You have. You're great.
Yeah. So it's, again, this is a testament to both floorball and to hockey, that letting people play on the ice, off the ice, and floorball was a connection point here. It enriches lives. I mean, and that's what we're looking for at the end of the day. At the end of the day, when you're a coach or a parent, we all want our children to succeed and go as far as humanly possible. No one, you don't have to hide that. But at the end of the day, you want to make a productive person. You want to make someone who's learning from the game and finding those life lessons of adversity and losing and winning and getting hit in the head and all these things with a floorball, not with a body anymore, right? Yep. And learning how to push forward, all right? And floorball for hockey is a massive gateway to doing that. And again, I've said this, I've played roller hockey, I've played floor hockey, and when I found floorball, I was blown away. And it's not surprising to me that it has spread across both, Canada and the United States as a training tool. Now, I'll also say this: if you want to start seeing, you're starting to see the influence of floorball in the NHL now. All right, because what's happening is some of these younger players grew up playing floorball, and that's why you're starting to see some crazy moves on the ice where they pick the puck up and flip it around, lift it and put it in the net. I mean, I know that move's been around for a while, but within floorball, there's a lot of trick sets that you can learn to do that just make your hands softer than what, a pillow, a feathered pillow. I don't know what to say.
Well, just look at the Europeans. I mean, a Patrick Laine, that's a floorball player. Matt Zuccarello. Those when you see him do shootout hockey, that's a floorball shootout. I mean, floorball shootouts. When you watch a floorball penalty shot, it's terrible. It's so slow, but because they're the way they come in and play, but they replicate that to hockey. You speed it up a little bit, but it's the same ideas. We got to hear a guy I work with, Dave Starman, on the World Juniors, talk about Trevor Zegras. He's been he's a U.S. product that's been using the floorball sticks, the USA Hockey floorball sticks, for years and years now, because he's in the driveway, he's in his basement. But I just want to go back to one thing, Lee, when you talk about the Kitimat trip and Brian Trotier's project and the success of that. Now, and here's where really it influences me. And talking about building communities. If you were to try that to be a youth baseball tournament, or a youth football tournament, or a youth golf tournament, it limits so many people from being able to participate. Right. I mean, you can't just get a community together and say, hey, let's play baseball. You can't do it. And I think with floorball and hockey either, or roller hockey, you got to have roller skates. Hockey, you got to have equipment. You got to have ice. What floorball does, and not to get too crazy about it, but it does bring, it's co-ed. It's athletic kids, unathletic kids. It's disabled kids. We do a ton of work in wheelchair floorball and disabled floorball. I do a whole program with the blind hockey program here in our area, where they're using floorball sticks, and the floorballs have bells in them, so the kids can understand where that ball is because they're visually impaired. All of these great aspects of the way the stick is held in the hand and the success the kids have. So when you talk about, like, with Brian's program, a guy like Brian Trottier, who's a Hall of Famer, a top 100 player in NHL history, instantly saw how this could change communities and the way he works with kids, because it's universal to any kid that picks it up and wants to play.
And dedicated.
And I think that's to me
too. Like, he's completely dedicated to spreading this game across Canada and to First Nation communities.
Yeah, I mean, maybe even when you post this podcast, you could even show the stick that he made. It's a custom Brian Trottier stick that he embraces. Like, he's like, I love this. That's my name on it, the number on it, and the kids love it, and everybody I'm sure you guys hopefully stole a couple, but I think it's having, but Brian knows that it's Brian's the one that he introduced it to the Penguins Foundation, and said, listen, we got to get this into thousands of kids' hands, but for all of the aspects of it. And again, is it a growth program? There's no doubt about that. It's a way to get kids involved with hockey, but more importantly, it's a community growth program. It's a way for your community to get involved athletically, have a lot of enjoyment, sweaty heads, go to bed, and have an opportunity to, one of the things that we lack in North America, and specifically in the US and a lot of markets, is making hockey culturally acceptable.
Absolutely.
That it's not, when I talk to non-hockey people, it's like, oh my God, you mean those 5 a.m. practices, and my kid and your 8-year-olds are having bench clearing brawls and fighting and all that hitting and the concussions. I'm like, well, no, that's not hockey. That's not my hockey world. I mean, that's not what, there's so many other great aspects to it. It's changing the culture of hockey and getting more kids to understand what hockey is. And it's just a great way to grow the sport and get your kids involved.
Right. Lee, I got to tell you, that story really touched me. Thank you for sharing that. That was beautiful. And it affected you. You can tell.
Oh, it did.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah. And I'll make
after
sure.
After that, I got nothing. After that, I got nothing.
No, but Christie, his video, what he did with the video, he went up there. We sent Lee up there as a floorball documentary, and it turned into a real story.
I will.
All right.
We'll share.
You gotta send me that link.
Yeah, it was. Look, hockey has given me so much in my life outside the obvious, but getting to travel within the game and be a documentarian for the game and see these things. And again, Mike knows this too. I've also had to go to Eastern Long Island to do a documentary about this with the Peconic Hockey Foundation. So every time we do a story, I learn something, but the experience within the game for me, grows. And that is the gift of hockey, right? I always say it doesn't owe me anything. I owe the game a lot for helping me get, and obviously all the people on the way, my parents, the coaches. It would take 6 hours to list everybody.
Right.
So just rounding this out a bit, I do want to say, so whether you're looking for an introduction to the game for your community, for your kids, or you're an advanced player, I can't stress that enough. I'm a skill development coach at the high levels. This is the best stick handling tool I've ever seen. And I'm not saying that lightly. Floorball is, and I'll say it's an essential option now if you're looking to become serious or not serious in the game. I did want to open this up to both of you, but where are the resources? Where should people go from here if they're interested I've got to get a floorball stick? Mike, I'll go to you first. Where should people be going if they want to find the materials needed to play the game?
Well, ideally they're coming to me, but basically we have we work with Bryce Salvador and X Hockey Products. We have the exclusive official licensed floorball stick to USA Hockey. It is the best stick that we've been able to develop. It's the same stick they would use in Europe in professional floorball leagues. It's got a nice cup blade, no need to curve it. We have different sizes. So I think through the X Hockey Products site is probably the best way to get your USA Hockey branded stick. I do them. I also sell packages together. So I'll sell to teams where you buy 15 sticks, you get a case of balls just because you lose a lot of them, and you go out and play. And I think that's probably your best bet. But there's tons of, there's a lot of different levels of floorball sticks as far as, ones that, the NHL uses. Sometimes the cost is a little less because they're making these for, outreach and gifts. But a traditional floorball stick, a USA Hockey floorball stick that Christie, obviously in the USA Hockey magazine, her article really talks a little bit about the use of the sticks, but the quality is important. You don't want, you want a good quality stick that can be used for, years and years on any surface. And I think, our USA Hockey sticks kind of fit the bill for that.
You did a great job of making that an equal offering podcast, and I appreciate that. No, Mike is a trusted resource in the floorball realm. There's no doubt about that. And Christie, again, your article's coming out. Should be out actually when this podcast is out in November. But I did want to give you an opportunity to tease the following month, the December issue, as we like to do here, so people come back and listen to the next podcast.
All right, now it's gonna sound boring, but it's not.
We'll make it exciting. This is what I do. Come on.
The topic is youth hockey culture. And you're like, oh,
if I didn't make culture sound good just then.
So boring.
No, it's important.
Yeah. So what we're talking about, a lot of it has to do with attitude. From the bench, how your kids behave, to when they even first walk into that arena, the very first meeting that you have with your coach, making sure that preseason meeting, everybody's on the same page, knowing the expectations, knowing the discipline that's expected, knowing what your part is as a hockey parent. A lot of these parents let just certain parents do certain things. It takes a team to run a team.
Absolutely.
We all have different skills and talents that we can bring to our youth hockey team, and we should offer them up. And just don't let, I'll let, so-and-so can run the snack stand. No, you all need to step up, pitch in. So it's that culture that is built from the very beginning that is so important, that'll help you carry through the season and make it a good season, because, it only takes a few rotten apples to spoil a whole hockey team. And we've been on teams like that where just a couple of parents that are just
got the stopwatch, they're timing their kids' ice time. Yeah. One of you is listening right now, and you're mad at me for saying that, but it's true.
I'm sorry. Stop. Don't even get me started.
That's next month. No,
Some of the parents.
This is what I'll tell you. This is what I'll tell you, and this is why it's a fascinating topic. And again, we'll dive into this on that episode. But in my work, I build teams. That's what I do outside of everything we're seeing here. And I always tell teams that you need three things to really succeed. You need tactics, you need talent, and you need a team bond. And when I tell them you need a team bond, they say, well, how much time should I spend on that? Like once a week? And I said 33.3%. And they think I'm crazy. But here's the thing. The results prove themselves. So even on a youth team, when it comes to culture, that is something that needs to be spent, time to be spent building that and really harnessing it. For you have to nurture that, okay? And I'm actually excited to talk to you about that. So don't think it's boring. Those of you listening don't think it's boring. You want to read it. That is going to do it for this episode of Our Kids Play Hockey. I do want to give a shout out to both Christie Casciano-Burns and Mike Benelli for once again being the best two co-hosts that anyone could ever have. We have an email now. You can email us at team@ourkidsplayhockey.com. You can visit ourkidsplayhockey.com, and you can listen to the show or watch this show wherever podcasts are heard, or on Facebook or social media. We're everywhere. Wherever you want to be, we're everywhere. And, of course, share this with your friends. Share this with your kids. Share this with other parents. Share this with coaches as much as you possibly can, because that's what we're trying to do, is create a community. For Our Kids Play Hockey, I'm Lee Elias. That's Christie Casciano-Burns. That's Mike Benelli, and we'll see you next time.